I wonder if somebody calls my mama a whore.
Is she?
Welcome to In Defense of, making the case for overlooked, forgotten, or derided movies in 5 minutes or less. Don't have 5 minutes? Here's 5 seconds. Today, In Defense of Roadhouse, a 1989 action movie. You know what, I've got a lot to get through and not much time. It's Roadhouse. It's by far the most popular movie I've covered, so I'm presuming you've already seen it. Nobody can agree on whether Roadhouse is a so bad it's good movie or a good movie. On release, it was critically eviscerated and nominated for a stack of Razzie Awards. On the other hand, it has a heavy cult following, but even that's divided into lovers of 80s cheese and those who insist the movie is an unheralded gem of genuine merit. Roadhouse can be perceived on multiple levels, and in order to understand whether Roadhouse is good bad or good, we need to understand all of them. The surface level. 80s action movies are all about hypermasculinity. Lots of buff dudes, hot babes, swish cars, one-liners, explosions, oiled up fights, and of course, hair. If that's what you're after, Roadhouse delivers, perhaps more than any other 80s entry. This is the level that the movie is mostly perceived on, either enjoyed or scoffed at, taste depending. Those that do the scoffing will point at Roadhouse's macho excesses as unintentionally funny, as if it's a straightforward action movie that's accidentally gone wrong. They're incorrect. Roadhouse is poking fun at its own genre. It's broadly comedic in places, this scene being the standout, and I'm not convinced that the car salesman isn't an actual cartoon character. But there's more subtle humour on display too. Dalton deadpan refusing to fly by plane because it's too dangerous, remember his job is violence, is so utterly ironic that it must be a joke. If you're not convinced that all this throbbing machismo is dialed up to 11 for laughs, consider that the movie was written by a woman. Not only that, Hilary Henkin was Oscar nominated for writing a scathing satire. Now we're getting meaty. Roadhouse is a western. We've got a stranger with a murky past who arrives in a small town and bonds with the oppressed common folk to fight the rich criminal element. That's the plot of about 500 westerns, but notably the classic Shane. You may have seen it turn up in other genres too. Hell, this wasn't even Patrick Swayze's first rodeo. Likewise, Dalton's samurai-esque character is rooted in, but not exclusive to, the western. The wandering spirit who commands a fee but has no care for material possessions began as a literal samurai before being appropriated for a number of genres. All the western archetypes are here. The corrupt land baron, the aging gunslinger not as quick on the draw as he once was, the doctor, the general store owner, the hooker with a heart, the saloon owner who sort of doubles up as the impotent sheriff too. This is the level at which viewers start to realise that labelling Roadhouse as a bad movie isn't fair. The other writer, David Lee Henry, wrote a western a few years prior. Add in a director whose only previous feature took a concept from the 1800s and updated it to the modern day, and the penny starts to drop. Roadhouse begins to make sense. Until we reach the final level. You know how everything makes sense in a dream while you're asleep, but when you wake up and reflect, you realise it was nonsense. That's Roadhouse. It works on its own internal logic that is alien to us mere mortals. Many are unable to distinguish this surreal streak from the cheesy 80s action level, but I assure you, this is an entirely separate plane of perception. The first time we see Dalton, he's nodding his head in time with music, but he's nodding upwards with the beat, not downwards. Try it yourself now. It feels completely unnatural. This is an early indication of things to come. Here are some highlights.
Well, it's the kind of place that they sweep up the eyeballs after closing.
Sweep up the eyeballs, trustees of modern chemistry. People use these interesting phrases in Roadhouse as though they're everyday utterances. In reality, nobody has said them, ever.
Hey, vodka rocks. What do you say you and me get nipple to nipple?
What does that mean? How does vodka rocks relate to nipple to nipple? Why does he dot the I? The other letters are all uppercase.
You know, I heard you had balls big enough to come in a dump truck.
Right, that sort of makes sense, but it's grammatically inaccurate in a dreamlike way. He'd need to have balls big enough to fill a dump truck full of cum, is what he means. Anyone can come in a dump truck, just use a ladder and don't get caught.
But, you don't look like much to me.
Opinions vary.
Okay, that's a comeback, but it's not a sick burn or even a zinger. Why does Terry Funk look so stunned as though he's been put in his place by a truly witty retort?
You're a dead man.
Here we go. Logic dictates that you'd emphasise the dead part of that threat. Terry prefers to accentuate that Dalton is indeed a man.
You're a dead man.
Dalton is waiting at Red's place before it's even open, but he works late nights, and we saw he was up even later reading. So when does he sleep? Or maybe he's asleep now, and this is his nightmare. This shop is just called Boats. Above everything, Brad Wesley is the true indicator that what we're watching is a surreal piece. He literally spouts actual Dada nonsense that holds up syntactically, but not semantically.
You lost your face, Dudley. That's what it is. It's made you an abuser.
How does losing your faith make you an abuser?
You are a sick man.
There it is again, emphasising man over sick.
A polar bear fell on me.
Factually correct, but can we appreciate that a polar bear fell on a man? My favourite uncanny, unnatural moment of Roadhouse is rather meta. Keith David is 5th on the cast list. That's understandable, fairly well-known actor in 1989. Here is every single line that Keith David has in this film.
Whiskey's running low. Hey, guy.
I won't accept that Roadhouse is a so bad it's good movie. There's too much going on here that's worthy of analysis, and I haven't even had time to mention that the action and pacing cannot be faulted. Sure, go ahead and enjoy it as an over-the-top stupid 80s actioner. Just understand that's your choice, not the movie's. I've covered a few films that crib from Escape from New York, but what about the other way round? Well, technically it's Escape from LA, but this is clear theft.
I thought you'd be bigger.
I thought you'd be taller.
Yeah, and I thought you'd be bigger.
I kind of thought you'd be taller.
I think we can forgive John Carpenter though. After all, he was bringing westerns up to date long before Roadhouse, and he knew how to use Keith David properly.